Welcome to Module 2, Exercise 2. In this session, what we'll be doing is using a plugin, so an extension to a web browser, and we'll be looking at XML via that plugin, and we'll also be modifying it and sending it back to the API. So we'll be using the web browser in both read and write mode to actually update the limbs. So how can we do that? Well, there's many ways. Let me start off by honing in on a sample in the operations client. I've got one here, and what I want to do is, first of all, let's modify this, and let's modify some of the user-defined fields which are associated with this. So let's just take this one that says progress, and we will give it a value using the operations interface. So let's say due to be run at instrument, and you'll see that most of these fields are empty in that they don't have any values associated with them. We'll be touching upon that in just a second, but let's save our changes. And now we want to look at the XML representation of that. And I say, rather than just using the straight browser, we'll be using a plugin. First of all, we can look at it in the browser if we want. Let's go under samples, and the one that we want is, and you've probably seen me do this before in previous videos, but if we go back to the limbs and copy its limbs ID to the clipboard and then paste its ID, we'll get the XML representation. Okay, that's just using the straight browser. We've seen that before. Let's copy the URL, and now we'll move to the browser plugin, which is called Poster. So you can install this, and you probably should have done already. But let's paste in the URL, and let's put in our authentication details. And the type of transaction we want to carry out here is called a GET. So all I do is hit the GET button, and that, on this other window, gives me this response, which is the XML representation. Now let's just copy this from here back into here, and if we look, we've got the list of user-defined fields, and if I want, I can reformat this to be slightly easier to read. There we go. And there's the one that we just entered, due to be run at instrument, and the field was the progress. So we're only seeing two user-defined fields in the XML. We know from the LIMS interface that there were many. So what's the disconnect here? Well, it's not really a disconnect, but just in terms of efficiency, we only publish UDFs in the XML if they actually have fields associated with them. Otherwise, we could be passing a great deal of essentially empty or useless information about. So although there are many user-defined fields defined for that sample, only two of them actually have values. So we only see two of them in the XML. Anyway, let's do what we set out to do. Let's actually use this poster extension or plugin to change this. So let's just put in a new value here, now expected to run next week. Let's fix the typo to run next week, and we want to send this back to the API. And since we're sending this back, it's classed as an edit, and edits are achieved using the put. So let's go and do the put. We get a response in the new window and everything looks good, but let's verify that by going back to the LIMS client, and let's view this sample now and look at its details, and we see indeed the progress field has now been updated. So most of the time we want to be manipulating the API via a program, but if you just want to do a quick change, or you want to fix a typo very easily, and you can use the operations interface, or if you want, you can use Poster. Now chances are you're just going to use the operations interface, but we did want to illustrate this. There are a few sort of cases where actually modifying the XML via Poster is quite a useful thing, and it can be done sort of one change at a time rather than the overhead of writing a script. Thank you.